You must listen to this entire message before entering a selection. To accept this call, press 5. To refuse this call, hang up now. To block this call and all future calls, press none. You may enter a selection now.
Hello, everyone. Welcome into our podcast. My name is Aundrea.
I'm Savannah.
It's Savannah, my co-host. We're co-hosts. And welcome to Accept This Call.
Our very first episode.
Yeah, so it's probably going to be a little rough and a little crazy, but we'll get through it together.
Yeah. How excited are you, Aundrea, to just finally be here? It wasn't even a long time coming. It was like, we're going to do it, and then here we are. We're doing it now.
Here we are. We're doing it. Like, what, 3 days later?
I would say. We were on the ball.
Yeah, we're just like, let's do it.
The reason that we wanted to start this podcast, too, is just we met through our boyfriends who are actually roommates incarcerated at the same facility. And we just been communicating a lot. We didn't know each other prior to that at all. And now we're just like, let's do it. Let's share our stories. Let's talk about what it's like to love somebody that's incarcerated. And let's just, it can be therapeutic for us, too. We both kind of decided, yeah.
Absolutely.
We got to get it out there.
And it's great, too, because you're a newbie in incarcerated relationships. And, I mean, I've been there, obviously. Me and Benjamin have been, together for a little, almost going on like 4.5 years. So it's going to be refreshing for me, too, to, like, hear your stories and your insights of, like, starting out, especially like compared to mine, and then I'm excited to like give you what advice I do know and do have, like, to carry on the relationship. So yeah, it's gonna be cool.
Okay, the question that I get all the time, I don't know if you get it all the time, is how'd you guys meet? So if you want to start, you can definitely talk about how you and Ben got together.
Yeah, so people ask me that too, because it's such a weird thing, especially since I live in Colorado and he's in Iowa. And so people are just like, but not only are you doing long distance, but it's someone incarcerated, on top of it. And so I've known Ben since we were probably like 12 or 13. Like we go to different schools together. That's what he says. Because there is like 3 middle schools in our hometown, and he went to a different middle school than I did. But we all had like dances together and, like sports and everything like that. We knew each other from like the pool and stuff. And he was just like one of my best guy friends growing up. He would ride his bike over to my house. My mom always loved when he showed up because he was always like, hi, Miss Pam. First, we graduated together, and that was pretty much the time we lost touch, because it wasn't too long after high school that he went to prison. So
sure. And then when did you guys, so you guys are the same age then, right? That's
yep.
Correct? Okay.
Yep, we're the same age. So then I moved out here to Colorado about 5 years ago, and one day his mom messaged me on Facebook and was like, Ben wants to know if he can have your number. And I was like, oh my gosh, yes, absolutely. I would think about him a lot through like those years, and he never believes me, but we used to, I used to work for a blood center in Iowa, and we would go, because he used to be at a different prison that was closer to my hometown, and we used to do blood drives there for like the correctional officers and staff and everything. And I always just remember going there, and I'm like, oh my God, I would just love to see him, even if it was just like through a window or, something to like reintroduce me back into his life, like don't forget about me type thing. And I tell him that, and he's like, whatever. And I'm like, no, it's true. But so yeah, he called me one day on my lunch break, and then I remember him being like, so when can I call you back? And I was like, literally anytime. Like I was like just so ecstatic to hear from him. And then I think in probably the 4.5 years, there's maybe only been 10 days or so that we haven't like gone without like communication. So we talk frequently.
Oh my God.
I know.
So cute.
Yes.
It's like meant to be, because it's like what a situation to get yourself into. for him, and then still be able to connect. It's like, obviously something went right in the universe for you guys to match your paths
exactly.
again, you know?
Yeah. And I had the biggest crush on him in, you know, throughout middle school and stuff. And when a lot of my friends like found out after I posted, you know, the petition and everything, like one friend reached out, she was like, you have always had the biggest crush on him. She's like, I am so happy for you. It's really crazy.
And then
there's just like little stories throughout, like growing up, that I'm just like, wow, I can't believe life led me back to you. You know what I mean? It's crazy.
You're gonna make me cry. First episode, you're gonna make me cry. Jeez, that's sweet.
Yeah.
Well, Jake and I definitely, you already know this, obviously, have a very different story, which is so cool, too, that we're, like you said, like we're able to have such different experiences and everyone can kind of hear both sides of it. Jake and I, he's 4 years older than me, and we met actually through like a mutual friend. To be honest, it was his ex-girlfriend. Like, let's get out of the way. Like, his ex-girlfriend, I knew her, and then I would see their relationship kind of broadcasted everywhere, and I, you know, thought of them as like a unit. And then when they broke up, it was around the holiday time that I reached out to him. They'd broken up a couple months earlier, and I already had like an Omail account set up. And so I just wanted to get rid of my quarters. I always tell him that. I was like, I just wanted to get rid of my quarters. So I reached out to you.
What a way.
And so I reaced out and I was like, hey, I know you don't know me, but like, happy
Gotta
holidays.
get rid of my quarters. So what's up?
I was like, I guess it has to be you. I was like, I know that the holidays are super tough, like, especially when you're incarcerated, you know? So I was like, just want you to know, like, hope you're doing good. I saw your petition online, like, because Jake is actually, has a commutation on file at the Board of Parole. So I saw that, signed the petition, like, was really interested in just, like, hearing his story and stuff. And then we just kind of, like, kept in contact, and then I started to know him, and then I started to love him. So it's kind of hard not to once you know him, I feel like.
Yes.
That's just my opinion.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, we've only been together for like 6 months as compared to Aundrea's lifetime, but
I mean, I would say, like, especially within the first year, like 6 months to a year, that's like the hardest, because you're getting to know each other. You're getting to know the people, you know, like for Ben, it was like getting to know the people that I'm associated with and my friends, and getting to know them, even though like a lot of them didn't know about him, which is like a whole different subject. But I think it was really important for him during that time to like know my friends, to know my family, get established. And I mean, it was hard. It's not like they can physically meet him.
Yeah.
So
I never actually even thought about that side of it either. It's like, your family knows him and they know of him, they know your love for him, but like he can't, I mean, they're not on his visiting list, right? Like they can't just go and then visit him with you.
So when Jake first called you, because they have to call us, we can't call them, so that's a big like communication barrier there, you know, like if a call drops or your phone dies, it's not like, oh, plug it back in and just dial them up or text them, you know, it's like you got to wait for them to call back. And so do you remember the first conversation with Jake? Do you remember how it went?
It feels like it was like 800 years ago, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, it feels so long ago, and it wasn't that long ago. I remember that I asked him to call me because I was like, I want to hear what you're about. Like, we'd only been communicating through Omail, so I was like, let's see what you're up to, because I was so, and I think that this comes with like every relationship, and that's important to keep in mind. I think when people ask you about your relationship with someone incarcerated, they ask questions that I'm like, well, how do you do that? You know what I mean? They're like, how do you keep the relationship alive? I'm like, how do you do it? Obstacles, but I mean, it's still a relationship. You still face a lot of the same issues and things that you would if we were like face to face in a traditional relationship. Right. To answer your question though, I don't really remember. I remember I was so nervous and I was giddy and like I was super guarded though, you know, just because it's like a new situation, any new relationship, your walls are kind of up. You're not really like, I'm not about to.
And to throw in like a bad boy on top of it, it's just like, what do you like? What should you expect?
Yeah, like, is he trying to play me, or is he throwing jail talk at me, which is like a lingo term that I didn't even know? Is he gonna dog me? I've learned so much. Like, I was just nervous, and then like more frequently, I would like he'd just start to call me, and then one day it just turned into like 5 times a day we talk. I was like, okay, call me at 7:00 in the morning to wake me up, and he's like, no. I said, oh, okay. He doesn't like to wake up early, but I got moving. Don't worry. But yeah, that's what I remember from the first call. But other than that, like, it's communication in general, I feel like is a huge boundary, because maybe you can, I mean, obviously you can talk about this more too, but for a long time, like, our guys had late night phone calls that I know about, but I never got to experience that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That was sometimes a hassle. It was, especially with Benjamin. Like, sometimes I would go to bed and they could like call throughout the night. So like sometimes I would just get a call at like 3:00 in the morning, and he would just be like, I'm bored, or I was thinking about you, or I just want to make sure you're safe. Yeah, it was kind of a blessing and a curse, because it was like sometimes I would, you know, if I went out or something, I'm like, all right, I'm out with the girlfriends. You could call me at 1 a.m. You know, that's cool. I'll be home. But other times it was like, I am sleeping. Why are you calling me? You know this.
Yeah.
Leave me alone.
For me and Jake, we would talk like 5 times a day. We usually had like a set schedule, because I feel like one of the assumptions that people make about people that are incarcerated are that they don't really have a schedule to follow. They don't have a life. They don't have a job, you know, but there are so many ways that our guys are involved, I feel like, in prison, at least for Jake anyways. Like, he has a job. I know Ben has a job, and Jake's involved in sports. He's involved in volunteer activities. So it's like he definitely has a schedule, and he definitely has responsibilities while still incarcerated. So we were talking like 5 times a day. We kind of had to limit ourselves because I was getting a little too I'm not gonna lie. I was gonna.
Yeah, there was times in the beginning where I was like, we just spent like $50 on the phone.
Yeah.
We need to cut back.
Yeah, because they only get 20 minutes, and it's $2.20 for the full 20 minutes. So, and even though the recording says at no cost to you, who do you think is paying for those phone calls?
Exactly.
We were talking for probably 5 times a day, I would say, for the full 20 minutes. And then once COVID hit, it's been like so scaled down dramatically. I'm lucky to talk to him 1 time a day, right? And you are the exact same way. When you and Ben talked before COVID, were you talking like, you know, how long were you guys talking every day?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of depended on my work schedule, and we definitely like cut down a lot compared to what we used to do. I mean, when I had when I worked at the hospital, and it was like I knew what time I was going on lunch, so I could email him and be like, having lunch from this time to this time, try to call me.
That with the format of our podcast too, and correct me if I'm wrong, like, we're gonna be sharing stories from other people that have loved ones that are incarcerated. We're gonna be sharing stories of people that were incarcerated. We might have some guests here and there to kind of just join us and tell their side of things, because just because you love someone or know somebody that's incarcerated does not mean that it's the same across the board. They're not all treated the same way. They don't all have the same privileges or the same restrictions. So it'll be cool to get some different views in there. We'll also answer like some questions that just come in. So I'll start because I got a really good one, and it's kind of heavy hitting, and I'll read it to you.
Way. I'm ready.
But so the one that, like I said, we get all the time is like, how'd you guys meet? And like, what's he in for? You know, so we kind of we covered part of that. The one
we'll talk about their crimes at a later date. I think it's very important for listeners to get to know us and get to know our story, and through us get to know who our boyfriends are to us and how they're not their crime.
You know, he's a big softie, right? So
both of us. Absolutely.
They both are. Yeah, for sure. I think we'll each probably end up doing like a whole episode on like the Jake story or the Ben story. And we go more into details about that at some later time, for sure.
And I would like to say too that I didn't do any heinous. Didn't do any heinous crimes. Nothing that involves, murder, rape, sex offending, anything like that. Very kind of a basic crime,
I would say
like
pretty basic, you know, one of the
basic.
like middle of the road crime. I don't know. Is that a thing? That's not to
Would
say
you say?
I
You say
middle of
Marilyn
the road.
Monroe.
Marilyn Monroe crime.
I was like, Marilyn Monroe crime? What's that mean? Are we getting into conspiracy theories? Are we turning this podcast into a conspiracy theory podcast?
Middle of the road.
Oh, middle of the road. Yes.
So funny.
Yes.
I was like middle of the road crime. On my Snapchat of just like send in anonymous questions that you want to know or you'd want to ask somebody who has a loved one incarcerated. And this one just like got me. It says, what is the hardest goodbye you ever had to do?
For me, when I go visit him, because I come all the way from Colorado to visit him, that last day when I know I'm gonna go home, that's definitely the hardest, because it's like I don't know for sure when I'm gonna see you again, and stuff like this, like with COVID going on, it's like I saw him. When did I go? Back in, I think, February, like right before. And it's like, man, if I would have known, like I would have just squeezed you like harder, like I don't know, I would have just like soaked it up harder. And I think that's like the hardest part is when I go visit, and it's so hard for me to leave, and I'm just like walking out the door, like looking at him and walking backwards, like until I can't see him anymore. And I mean, I would say that's probably like the hardest every time. And how about for you?
Tell that story about how you like won't hang up the phone.
Oh, yes. So when me and Ben talk on the phone and like the 20 minutes pop up, which you'll hear, we call her Brenda. She's the automated voice that you heard at the beginning. And so when Brenda pops up, we have a minute to wrap up our conversation, say goodbyes. I always make him hang up first, because I told him that it's not fair that I physically have to leave you when I come visit. The most you can do, or the least you could do, I should say, is like hang up on the phone. It's like little things like that like help our relationship too. Because now he knows, like, we have a rhythm to where if I were to hang up, be like, okay, love you, bye, click, he would be like, something's up. You don't usually hang up, So I haven't had the opportunity to visit him, because by the time you got on your list, COVID hit, or his list, COVID hit. So, what's been the hardest goodbye for you?
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, like I said, you had late nights before for phone calls where they got to be out and about, like however late they wanted. They didn't have a bedtime. That's why I tell Jake he always has a bedtime. And now his time is 10 o'clock. So we'll usually talk for like a whole hour before 10 o'clock. And then like we're always like rushing at 10. We're like, okay, bye, love you, just like getting into it. Like, okay, bye, like can't hang up. But
yeah,
this is like, I hate like if we were to get into an argument or something like that, and then we're trying to work on like recovery from it, and we finally get to like a really good place, and then it's 10 o'clock and I have to say goodbye, when it's like I just want to relish in this moment of good instead of like remembering the phone call as being kind of more like, not, I don't want to say, we've never really like fought, luckily, but just not a place of like, I don't know how to explain it. Just a good place. Like, I just want to make sure that we leave in a good place. So it's hard when we get to that good spot and then have to say goodbye. That's happened like 1 or 2 times that I remember. And it just freaking broke my heart, because it really set in like, I can't call him back. He can't call me back. Yeah. I can't talk about this anymore. Yeah. That's the hardest part for me, for sure.
Yeah. Obviously, everyone is incarcerated for different reasons. Do you ever have fears about the people your loved one is incarcerated with?
That is,
I know.
A good
Isn't
question.
that a great question?
Oh my gosh, it's so good.
Yeah.
And you and I have talked about this before too. You have better experience because you've actually got to meet some of them. I just get to hear the stories of like what Jake tells me about them, or if he says their name, sometimes I will go and Google them because I'm nosy. Yeah. And I have to know. It's actually, I do have fears about some of the people that he's in there with, because I worry that they might be bad influences, you know, and that would be true even if he wasn't incarcerated. But I think that it kind of steps it up a level just because of the circumstances that he's in. There are people that he considers his best friends that when he tells me like what their crime was, my mouth just like drops, right? Yeah. And I mean, I'm not worried, like I'm not scared of them. Like I'm not, you know, I'm not living in fear of like, oh my God, I'm scared this person's gonna come to my house or something like that.
Right.
I just get nervous that, you know, maybe the company that he keeps might be bringing him down instead of building him up.
More like bad influences rather than like fear for your life type people.
Yeah,
right?
100%. Yeah, 100%. And luckily too, like Ben and Jake are roommates, so I know the company that he keeps in regards to that. But you know a lot more of the people than I do, so maybe you have a different opinion.
It did scare me at first, especially when the first time that I visited him, I'm like, what kind of people am I going to see in the visiting room? You know, like you see that kind of stuff on TV and you're like, this is going to be crazy, fearful, you know, whatever. But I remember, and I still do this, I sit in the visiting room and I look around and I'm like, these people look like they don't belong here. Like, I'll even ask Ben sometimes, I'm like, that guy over there, what did he do? Do you know what he did? Like, he looks like he hacked some freaking bank computer or something. Because they don't look like they fit the crime or like that they belong in there. But yeah, there's some guys in there that I've met that I like personality wise, I think they're really cool. They're always super respectful of me when I come in. Like they'll just be like, hey sis, what's up? You know, like good to see you. You go in there, you get to know, like in the visiting room, you get to know these guys. You most of the time you don't know their crimes. And you establish like a relationship with them, a rapport with them where they might, you know, be the camera guy that takes your picture for visits every time you're in there. And you joke around with them and then you've known them for 2 years and then you figure out their crime and you're just like, okay, like that was 12 years ago, you're a completely different person. I can't imagine you doing that because I see how you interact with the staff and kids and other people in the visiting room, that it's like you grow from, you know, your mistakes. And so, you know, like I just said too, it's just like I'm not fearful for, you know, knock on wood, Ben's life. I'm more fearful of more so like the prison culture, I would say. So
for sure. And I think that it goes to say too that like we have the utmost faith in who Jake and Ben are as people, right? Like we know that like they're not gonna jeopardize all the hard work that they've put in, like all of the rehabilitation that they've done, just like the character work over the past how long, because Jake's been incarcerated for 10 years, Ben's been incarcerated for 13 years. They're not about to jeopardize that. So it's like, it's good to know that we have
1 minute remaining.
Yeah, we know, Brenda.
Thanks, Brenda.
We're going.
Okay, if you want to follow us on any of our social media, it's at toacceptthiscall on Instagram, toacceptthiscall@gmail.com, and just accept this call on Twitter. And that's it for the first episode.
Yeah. So if you do got questions or anybody wants to share their stories with us, submit them to our email account and we'll answer as many as we can. Your stories are very important to learn and grow and know what it's like to, you know, have a loved one incarcerated. And whether that's your boyfriend, best friend, baby daddy, baby mama, husband, wife, dad, mom, sister, it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be romantic.
We're all in this together. We're all trying to navigate this crazy world. So
especially during this crazy time.
Absolutely. Okay, well, thanks everybody. We'll see you on the next episode.
Okay, love you. Bye.
Bye.